Hey there guys, this is Tyler, and welcome back to another Top 5 video. Today we're going to be doing our yearly tradition and count down what in my opinion are the top 5 best FNaF fan games to come out of the previous year, which in this case is 2021. Now, I'm going to be honest, there weren't a whole lot of FNaF fan games as compared to 2020. Don't get me wrong, there was still a decent amount in 2021, but it just felt a little less. I guess this could be in part to what happened with Scott during 2021, but I'm not going to explain that whole situation again. We're here to talk about some FNaF fan games. As per usual, the rules and disclaimers are that number 1, only FNaF fan games that came out in 2021. Obviously, you fucking idiot. Number 2, these are my personal opinions, and if you disagree with this video, that is completely okay. And number 3, most of, if not all of the gameplay footage does not belong to me and belong to their respective owners. Before we dive straight in, if you're new around here, be sure to subscribe down below and turn on the notification bell. Totally optional, but it would be appreciated if you did. Without further ado, let's get straight in. So this was basically going to be a gameplay portion in the cancelled Chef Wanted. This is a FNaF or Pop Goes or Candies themed Pac-Man, where Pac-Man is a security guard, the ghosts are the animatronics, and the power pellets are either pizza, drinks, or flashlights. It's these kind of fan games I personally love. FNaF Pac-Man fan games or portions in fan games like in Scott in Space, for example, are always fun to play and are very enjoyable, even if there's the rage from dying a lot. However, even though the game can be pretty hard, it's still fair. It's not random RNG bullshit, no. It's an actually balanced game that has a difficulty that gets harder as the game goes on. It creates a very good experience. Also, you gotta love the teasers for Candies 4 and Pop Goes Evergreen hidden in them. So classy. Also, speaking of this being FNaF or Pop Goes or Candies themed Pac-Man, yeah, I love how you can change it between one of the 3 mentioned games. It gives so much flavor and uniqueness upon trying each one out. It's pretty nice. Besides the absolutely banging soundtrack this short little game has, there's not much I can really say about it. Chase animatronics is a fun and enjoyable playing experience and would have been a great portion in a cancelled fan game that had the potential of being amazing, and I cannot wait for Five Nights at Candies 4, Pop Goes Evergreen, or whatever else Team EKS got cooking in the oven. Oh, Cinders and Ashes! A full-on remaster on a classic FNaF fan game from 2015? This right here is great. So basically, to start off, this is a remaster done very well. The gameplay, in my opinion, is much better here than the original due to the coal shoving being less chaos to navigate. That was a great change. As well, the graphics are extremely well done here. It makes such a horrific atmosphere, and Thomas's design in this is just the icing on the cake. Also, another reason why this works really well as a remaster is because of how somewhat expansive it is from the original. By that, I'm referring to the secret Golden Thomas Knight. Despite it using the golden version of the main character trope in FNaF fan games, it works here because it makes the game more fresh in comparison to its original and has a unique knight dedicated to it. By far, though, my favorite part about the game are the phone calls. They're absolutely hilarious, and to be honest, one of, if not the best phone calls in any FNaF game. Sir Topham Hatt as the phone guy in this game is just pure gold, and it really shows.
Some information you may be able to use is Silence, you old cow!
This remaster was overall a somewhat nostalgic and overall unique gameplay experience that I recommend. Tealerland. I think I'm being reminded of something. Pure narcissism aside, this fan game's really good. For one, the graphics are really good. The yellow darkish brighting in locations are absolutely dim, but in a good way. The story going on here is very intriguing in the way you want to find out more. The fact this takes place in an amusement park is somewhat of an interesting concept for FNaF fan game settings, and then my favorite aspect about it, the gameplay. For one, the latter segments of the game are very interesting and provide some intensity later on, and then there's by far the most unique part about this game. I adore how you build an animatronic and use it as a luring device to get the animatronics in rooms that are able to be locked. I really like this because, for one, the idea of building an animatronic is unique all in its own fashion, but secondly, and most importantly, it takes the overused audio lure mechanic from FNaF fan games and other FNaF-related projects and adds a completely different spin to it to make it fresh. This game succeeds at originality, and that's something I can really get behind. I do have one small complaint though, however, and that's that this game's too short for what it is in my opinion. Yeah. I would suggest to add more content to the game to make it longer, like a few endings, secrets, and whatnot. But that's really my only criticism. This fan game was such a delight to play, and it's very enjoyable to no end. I'm very glad this got a spot in my top 5 fan games of the year. We had a FNaF fan game on this list that horrified a beloved children's character. Here's another one. This time, instead of Thomas, it's fucking Charles Entertainment Cheese, also known as Chuck E. Cheese. And just like Five Nights at Thomas is Dehydrated, this is a remaster, or well, reboot of another classic FNaF fan game from 2015, and by God, this is far superior to the original in every way. From the graphics, to the gameplay, to just everything. Everything from the original game is improved here. I remember how in the original, you could die at like 12 AM on night fucking 1, but it seems to be fixed here in the reboot, because from when I played this game on stream and watched other people play it, the game was actually played out really fair, and it took the path that difficulty in fan games, or to be honest, just games in general, should be. The first night or so should be somewhat on the easy side so players can learn how to play the game, and then as it goes on, it gets harder. Just like the classic FNaF games, for example. It's just that, I'd say at halfway into the first night, like 3 AM, there should be more tension so the game's not boring upon first playing. But yeah, this fan game improves on that glaring issue I had with the original, and that enough honestly makes this reboot good. But it's not even just that. The other aspects I mentioned, like the graphics for one, are heavily improved. In the original, the room graphics looked like image edits, and that was also literally the animatronic designs too. They basically, for example, got an image of the real-life Pasquale from Google, draw black eyes with red pupils and blood coming from his eyes, and boom, Pasquale death screen finished. Not even just Pasquale, every character too. But in the reboot, the models are designed all from the ground up in our original. As well, the room graphics look like they had more effort put into them, and it didn't look like Google Images just edited a bit. Besides a somewhat fucked up but in a good and unique way ending, there's not much else I can really say. The main reason this fan game is on this list is because it's ultimately one of the most major examples on how to do a reboot or remaster or remake on a previous FNaF fan game correctly. Taking every issue possible from the original and either fixing it or putting a clever spin on it to give its own flavor and or completely a new coat of paint. And with this, we move on to the only 2 honorable mentions I got this time round. Fazer Blast Unexpected Visitors by Games Productions and Ellie's by Scribby. Both are very enjoyable and fun in their own ways. Graphics are great in both of these, and the gameplay is pretty good and can be pretty unique. Fazer Blast is a spiritual number 6, and Ellie's is a spiritual number 7. Now, we move on to number 1. Grizzlies. But for real though, before we get into the actual number 1, I have to give this disclaimer. The fact there's a disclaimer present here should tell you what number 1 is. Before we talk about Flumpty's 3, I need to clarify that I do not support what Jonachrome did in the slightest. Pedophilia, child grooming, child abusing, and anything of that sort is never okay and is purely disgusting, inhumane, and I do not support anybody who would go out of their way to do these horrible things to little children and teenagers. If you support these behaviors from these sick people, or you're one of these sick people, get the hell out of my channel. I don't want you here. My community does not want you here. The FNaF community does not want you here. However, I'm a massive believer in separating creator and creation, artist and art. The only time I make an exception is if the creator's actions are blatantly present in the creation or art. Like if Flumpty's 3 had aspects in the game, like for example Flumpty being a pedo and representing John's wrongdoings, or there are pedophilia messages left in somewhere, I would not be supporting this fan game. An exception would be made to the separating creator and creation rule. However, Flumpty's 3, as it is, can actually be enjoyed as a game without the knowledge of who created it. So we can still talk about Flumpty's 3 as a game and pretend that Jonachrome had no involvement. Sure, he may voice every character in the game, but we could easily pretend that's someone else doing the voices, and that's not enough for me to consider this game deemed as an exception from my rule. With this disclaimer in mind, I will not be mentioning Jonachrome by name when I'm praising this fan game's positives, and unlike the other fan games in this video, I will not be linking the Game Jolt page for this game. When I'm discussing Flumpty's 3, I'm discussing it as a game. I am not intending to give John back his platform. Please keep this in mind. Jonachrome, if you're watching this, please leave the FNaF community and take your disgusting child grooming actions and pedophilia with you. I may still like your games, but I do not like you anymore as a person and what you've done. Get help. Without further ado, let's get straight into this. So, 1-8 of Flumpties 3, the third and final game of the classic FNaF Fangames trilogy, all about the funny egg that is immune to the plot and can transcend time and space, and may come after you, as well as leave you to figure out the rest. So basically, this game released on Halloween, with some difficulties upon first launch on Game Jolt. Anyway, are you guys hyped for the funny egg? But when it finally downloaded, and I sat down and played it on stream, I had a blast when playing. I beat the game 100%, and my god, let me tell you this, it was worth it. The number one reason why I still consider this the best FNaF Fangame of 2021 is because this is, in my opinion, also possibly the best ending to any FNaF Fangame trilogy ever. While it may be tied with the Day Shift of Freddy's trilogy's ending, I actually don't know which trilogy's ending I prefer, but it's one of these two trilogies. For Flumpty's case, I think this trilogy's ending works is because this was a FNaF fangame that was not made to be standalone. No, this fangame was created with it being the finale to a trilogy that hasn't been touched on ever since 2015. Literally, Flumpties 2 and Flumpties 3 have a 6-year age gap. It was created with this mindset ever since it was thought up with. This is quite literally the end to a fangame trilogy that a lot of people, even myself, consider nostalgic. And not like 2 years or 1 year ago nostalgic where it's not even just nostalgia, it's just a favored memory. No, this is the end to nostalgia that came from a time where me, and possibly you, were still a child, or at least young. I was like 9 or 10 when Flumpties 2 came out. That's nuts. And 16-year-old me playing the third game with the knowledge that this is it, this is the conclusion, really hits home. Every single aspect in this fangame, from the graphics, to the gameplay, to the story, yep, story, all have a feeling of finality. The graphics look so much more detailed and bigger than the previous two fangames, which makes this seem grand on the surface, so first impressions are immediately an A+. Then the gameplay. Every single character, for the most part, made an appearance. Even the beaver returned and was fused with the owl to form a hybrid. The first night where it's the supporting cast is just already a hit at home with unique mechanics and a somewhat hard later on, but still enjoyable night to play. Then with the twist of the time going from 6 AM back to 12 AM, and we get a full-on fucking Flumpty night. With a whole bunch of Flumpty variations, some even being from the cancelled 1 week of Flumpty's game, all coming after you. And of course, there's hard-boiled mode that combines these two together. And then there's the fact that it's confirmed there's somewhat of a story going on here, where it turns out the whole trilogy has been a week. And once you've reached the end of the week, aka beating hard-boiled mode on Flumpties 3, you're free to go. You won Flumpty's game. You're a champ. And then the last shot of the game. Just wow. Absolutely, without a doubt, one of the most beautiful endings to not just FNaF Fangames, any game really. This truly is it. While there's an argument to be made that this game's not going to be as impactful to players who haven't played the first 2 games, there's still the really enjoyable and fun gameplay to be had, the clever attention to detail, like the A and B rooms in Flumpty's Night only having objects that start with that letter, the honestly really impressive horror that this drawn fangame somehow pulls out of the park with how intimidating Flumpty can look. My god, this is a fangame anyone can enjoy. Well, if you ignore the person who created it. I truly think that if the creator was not exposed to be a child predator, this fangame would be much more praised about and would forever live as a perfect ending to a classic trilogy of not just FNaF Fangames, but fangames for any game. I may not support the creator of this game for what he did in his personal life, but it's just undeniable that this fangame, when seen as a game, is a masterpiece, and each aspect in this fangame helped create the finality feel that it intended to have. And for that very reason, 1-8 of Flumpties 3 is, in my opinion, the best FNaF fangame to come out of 2021, and as well, one of my favorite FNaF fangames of all time.